BRB UK. Worse teeth, better accents.
Good evening and welcome to a half episode of BRB UK, and we have a guest for our interview this week. It is the one, the only, and the returning, I think our most frequent returning guest, Mr. Mike Bithell.
Thank you. I'm imagining applause. I don't know why.
I'm sure everyone listening to the podcast was applauding.
Just wherever you are,
just at the
pause.
right time.
Yeah, like a nice little, like a golf clap, not a real clap.
That's
like
the British way. That's how I listen to my
bravo.
podcasts. Just clapping them in.
Awesome.
Yeah, little cricket clap just to welcome you into the thing. But yeah, really nice to have you back. I think you've released multiple games since the last time we saw you. I think it was around
Possibly
Subsurface Circular.
quite a few then, yeah.
Had you on last time. So I think since then, I think we spoke to you just before John Wick Hex, basically. I think that was a known quantity the last time we spoke to you, but I don't think it had been released.
Right, so we talked about it, so you knew it was coming, yeah. Okay, cool.
And then that brings us to your latest game, which we'll talk about straight away at the top, which is the Solitaire Conspiracy.
Yeah.
So, before we get into it, it's out this week it's been out on some platforms already, I believe, Switch, and was it PC as well?
It was on PC and Switch until this week, and then this week is Xbox and PlayStation, yeah.
Xbox and PlayStation. So
filling out the roster. Yeah.
Coming to the big consoles.
I have no opinions on that at all.
you can't.
I have no quote that can be taken out of context on what you just said. Yeah,
that's why the two of us are okay together. You can't say okay to that, but you can let me say it, and we can just move on. That's fine. But yeah, so tell us a bit about the Solitaire Conspiracy. It sounds like it's got some solitaire in there.
That would be amazing if it didn't, wouldn't it? That would be one hell of a
the good old bait and switch.
Yeah. So it's honestly just, I think like a lot of people during the pandemic, I was pottering around. The rest of the team was we did a VR game called Arcsmith that came out a few months ago, which was really cool. But I wasn't working on that. It's the first project we've made that I didn't direct. So I was kind of pottering around, and trying to figure out something to do.
Did they just sneak off and do that without you, Mike? Did they do that behind your back?
I didn't know until it came out. It was a massive shock. But I was trying to think of, I was trying to do, like a lot of people, just doing things I'd not done before. And one of the things I'd always wanted to do was try and make like a card game. Just never programmed a card game. And it just got out of hand, basically. I just started making it. Built a little prototype solitaire game that was built around a variant of solitaire that I thought was interesting. And then showed it to the rest of the team. People liked it, so we kind of just built it up into this thing. And it was about 4 months, and we turned it into an FMV cutscened spy thriller. Which I don't know how that happened, but it did. We all went a bit weird, didn't we, in the pandemic? So fair enough. And then it came out and really seemed to connect with people. Like it's one of those interesting things. We make a lot of games, we ship a lot of games, and we've been very lucky. All of them have done well enough, but some of them seem to just kind of click for people in that way. And it was definitely on that list of those games that we've made that kind of just seemed to connect with people and did really well. And then now this is it rolling out onto all the other consoles and kind of hopefully finding more players who want to play a slightly overproduced solitaire game.
And possibly not exactly your department as well, but when it comes to having a game that's been out on PC and Switch, and I'm particularly thinking of a card game, and listeners of the show will know I bang on about UI and user interface and like the kind of how you interact with the game being a key component. But is that something that you've had to adjust and change when going to something that's going to be played in a different format, more likely?
For sure.
When sitting further away from the screen?
Yeah, it impacts everything from like font size to specifically like the literal interaction, right? Like it was made originally for a mouse. I got to give credit to, we work with a company called Ant Workshop who've done I think all of our ports in Subsurface Circular. So they did John Wick on console. They've done this on console. And I think they've done a really good job of kind of translating what was a mouse game to kind of using on the thumbsticks, and it flows really nicely. But yeah, honestly, like a lot of things in game dev, it's just about getting something made and then it being awful and you fixing it. So you make the quickest version of it, and then you just iterate on that to try and find how to get back to the fun. So a lot of me sitting with a Switch dev kit and just kind of like, we need to make this a little bit faster, or this needs to be a bit slower, or this needs to glow a bit more. I can't see that. And you just kind of iterate that through. Unfortunately, Ant Workshop are also just excellent on their own terms. So it's very easy to work with them and kind of give that feedback.
You were talking about porting just there as well. And that's one thing that I think, is that fairly common these days, even among fairly big studios, to have a second, a third-party studio work on the actual porting of the game rather than doing it in-house?
I think the mid and large studios usually will do it in-house. And there's a lot fewer barriers now to that. We've historically always done it like that, mainly just as a side effect of our size, that there isn't enough consistent work porting our games to necessarily kind of allow for us to do that in-house, because essentially we'd have to hire one person to do that job and then keep that person on payroll, indefinitely doing that job, which if we've not got enough things that need porting, that can be a big kind of expense and kind of challenge to kind of justify company-wise. So for us, working externally has historically kind of made sense. I could see that changing, though. I could 100% see that being something we tweak and fiddle with as time goes on.
Right, so let's get into some numbers on Solitaire Conspiracy as well then. So what are we talking sort of length of game-wise, and how much is it, and when can people get it?
You put me on the spot now. I'm going to have to look. So I'm actually going to have to look on the Steam page. It's a long
that's all right,
time
Mike.
since we
I imagine
argued
it's not very often that you buy your own game, so that's okay.
I think Bithell Games are overrated. Like I don't get it really. I don't get what the appeal is. So thanks for asking. Solitaire Conspiracy is currently £10 on Steam, and I assume similar elsewhere. And in terms of scale of the game, I would say the campaign, you can probably race through it in about kind of 3 to 4 hours. And then there's some kind of side missions, and we made some updates post-release that kind of bulk that out with some interesting side characters. And then we also have kind of competitive modes in the game, daily challenges, stuff like that. So there are players who I know play for like 20 minutes a day and have done since the game came out, because there's just a different challenge up for them every day to kind of compete on the leaderboard for. So it's as long as you want it to be, really, but there's also like a nice, concise story in there if you just want to kind of get in and out.
I assume the story was written by you. Is that the case? And you usually get some interesting voice actors and stuff in. Is that the case with this one, or have you gone with a slightly different approach?
Yeah, so I wrote the kind of the overarching story and the cutscenes and stuff like that. There were a couple of other really talented writers who kind of helped and did the and absolutely took over basically the mission writing and the kind of all of the additional writing. And there's a surprising amount, again, for a solitaire game, there's a surprising amount of writing in this game. But in terms of cutscenes for FMVs, we just had fun with it. So it was Greg Miller, who's a mate who I've always wanted to put in something, is in it as your kind of main point of contact. There's Einel Tomlinson, who's a really good actor I've liked for a while. There's Samantha's in it. There's Alana's in it. I'm just running through now in my head who's in different. Samantha Bayard and Alana Pierce are both kind of playing other roles in it. I think that's it. I'm now worried I'm going to forget someone. There's lots of really interesting people, various like actors, I would say, but actually also most of the cast are YouTubers, because we wanted like FMV video to camera, so basic camera stuff, so it made sense to have people. Yeah, and who had the setups, because again, this was done during pandemic, right? So we needed to rely on people already having the gear at home to make this.
Right, so there was
a bit of practicality there as well, which was interesting to play with.
Okay, and I'll forgive you if you've forgotten a member of the cast, because despite the fact that you said FMV earlier in the interview, and despite the fact that I saw Greg Miller and other people in it on launch when I was seeing the trailers and stuff for the Switch version, I totally didn't pick up on that when I was asking you the question. You glossed over that very nicely, made me not look like the idiot that I am, and then we just carry on without anyone noticing. Thank you very much, Mike. That's great.
Completely smooth. No problem at all.
And as you mentioned, one of your cohorts there, and as we're getting into it as well, one of the other things you've been doing during lockdown, and I think maybe even started beforehand, but you've definitely started since the last time I saw you. You started podcasting as well, muscling in on my territory, eh?
Well, you seem to be having so much fun with it. I thought I'd give it a go. Yeah, it was a weird one. We started doing it. We did start doing it just before the pandemic. So on John Wick, myself, Austin Wintry, and Troy Baker, all three of us worked on that project, and we were doing New York Comic Con. We wanted to do a panel for the game, and I've always been a fan of Alana's, and I thought she'd be a great host for it. So she hosted, she chaired that panel. And then months later, we did the panel, we went for dinner afterwards. It was a nice day with the four of us. And then a few months later, she just kind of reached out and said, "Hey, that was a really good group of people. We should do something else, like as a group, and podcast was the thing we thought of." And that was literally 2 months before kind of the pandemic kicked off. So it's kind of hilarious. If you go back to the first couple of episodes, it's just like we're going to do this monthly podcast where we talk about the games industry, and if we're in the same kind of city, maybe we'll do a stage version of it or whatever, because it's a fun group. And then you see in real time it go to a weekly podcast because we have nothing else to do. And it's been really interesting now coming out of it, because we're all basically going back to having, really busy careers basically to deal with. And we're currently trying to navigate how often can we now do a podcast? Because the four of us, Troy needs to be on a set, Austin needs to do a concert somewhere, I'm on a business trip to God knows which conference. There's enough movement now where it's this might not stay as a weekly show, but we'll see. It's been a lot of fun though.
Yeah, and as you said, or alluded to, I think it's a nice setup, because you've got four people that give four slightly different perspectives on podcasting. And any idiot can strap on a set of headphones and podcast for 5 years, as I've proven. But I think it's nice that you've got those slightly different, and I wouldn't say necessarily unique perspectives, but perspectives that you don't necessarily hear in a lot of podcasts all the time, unless they're a guest as a one-off. And so you've got yourself and Troy that are giving the sort of more industry side of things, and even there, you and Troy have very different perspectives on what you're saying.
Massively so, completely different ends of the industry. It's been really interesting, and I think that it almost does, often maybe too much sometimes, but it definitely is a show that feels like it's four people who do a lot of interviews and are usually the guest on another show, being locked in a room together for up to 2 years, essentially interviewing each other. And it's been a fun kind of change into this kind of strange kind of zoo radio format that we're in now. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's honestly, from my perspective, it's just a nice excuse to hang out with three people I really like talking to. I've got a lot of respect for all of them.
And look, I joked that, you're muscling in on territory. I think there's more than enough room for the both of us. And
everyone's got a podcast nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope you do get to carry on and do it at least semi-regularly, because, as I said, I think it delivers an interesting perspective that there isn't another podcast out there that's quite like it, basically. So, yeah, I like it.
And that's cool. That's what I would hope for, hopefully it's a bit unique.
So, where can people get that and get that in their eye holes or ear holes?
We've just done a deal with Spotify for $1 billion, so it's now locked. No, it's a podcast called Play, Watch, Listen. It's on everything, I think. I don't know. It's probably not on one thing. I know, Alana runs all of it. I guarantee there'll be one platform that. But if you can't find it on your platform of choice, let us know and we'll go and put it on there. But yeah, it's been good. And then, God, I did a podcast called North Star Rising as well, which if anyone who's listening to this likes listening to things, which presumably they do, that's my kind of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fanfic that I did with some actors early on in the pandemic. So that's quite fun. That's a 6-episode kind of radio drama. And I also do a very stupid podcast called Yeah, Doctor Who with my friend Dan. And we just recorded the new episode yesterday because there's a new episode of Doctor Who on. It was 2.5 hours long. So
yes, I did see you say that as well, basically.
It's at the indulgent end of the podcast spectrum. That is very much just two angry guys complaining at each other for 2 hours. If that floats your boat, that also exists.
I must confess to having not listened to that one. I like Doctor Who. I'm not the biggest Doctor Who fan in the world. It's kind of I take it and leave it. I tend to watch the Christmas ones and dip in and out when there's new Doctors and stuff like that. But yeah, I haven't seen the latest episode, so it would be slightly lost on me. But where are you generally with your Doctor perspective at the moment? It seems that mainly Doctor Who fans aren't entirely happy with the state of Doctor Who at the moment, generally. Is that fair? Yeah,
I think that's fair. I'm not a massive fan of the direction at the moment. I think Jodie Whittaker and the rest of the cast, I think, are very good. I think they've been underserved with the writing and the stories.
Yes, that's my impression of what I've seen and heard, basically, secondhand. So, yeah.
Yeah. That would be. But if you'd like to hear that yelled into a microphone for 2 hours, please go and listen to our podcast. It's an angry little show, and I love it.
Let's see. I can't imagine you angry, Mike. I don't think I've ever seen you angry in all the years I've known you. So
no, it's most. In fairness, Dan, the other guy on the podcast, is the one who gets angry, and I'm more of the kind of goading him on, basically. The kind of the
I thought you'd be calming him down,
encouraging it. Oh no! I'm like, I was basically saying after everything he says.
You're,
like, the
you're
kind of
an anger
bully's
enabler, basically. That's how it
That's
works.
right. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I'm the cause of the problem. Yeah. I'm facilitating the problem. Yeah.
And I won't go as far as to call you an irritant, because I wouldn't go that far, Mike. But still. Right. But yeah, one other thing that I wanted to just pick up on quickly before we lost you for the evening, but generally, you were at Develop last week, which
I was
this week, last week.
But
that's an event that I do like to attend, even though it's not really for me. I have been at and seen you at a couple of events, and it's a nice one to come along and just kind of be able to chat to a few developers about a few things. I normally end up going into a couple of the developer conference things just so I can kind of talk about that, and I think I went to a Stadia one at my last one, which was interesting to say the least.
There you go. That was a specific moment in the games industry, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, that had me coming out, and there was literally a load of indie developers going, "Really? They haven't spoken to anyone yet?" kind of idea. But yeah. Anyway. Develops are like a really nice event that I took the decision, as I have with most gaming events this year, that I don't need to earn my living from attending it, and me attending it would increase the risk for those people that do need to earn their living from it. So as much as I would like to attend, I've kind of not been attending this week. Can you just talk about how Develop was in general and kind of what it's like in COVID times attending an event as well, basically?
Yeah, it was a bit odd. I think I was impressed generally with, I think people were respecting everyone's kind of comfort levels. I think that's one aspect of all of this, that different people definitely have where their lines are. I'm very much still wearing a mask indoors everywhere I go, and kind of like being kind of hyper aware of it. Not everyone's there. Other people feel differently, and I fair enough to an extent. And it, so I was there in my mask unless I was eating or drinking something, and people were, no one was being a dick about that, which is nice. Yeah. Which is definitely more than can be said for like just going about your day in the real world. But it was good vibes. I think honestly, everyone there was just very, very excited to see
other human beings,
the industry. Yeah, and it's a weird one, man. There's definitely definitely, especially I speaking for myself, especially, there is a lot of friends I have who are kind of people I see at those events and don't contextually see elsewhere. Like they're people from other countries, and to be fair, Develop was very British this year for obvious kind of travel reasons, but also just from other corners of the industry, people who live around the UK and I don't visit, so those are the moments I see them. So there's a lot of people who I was just incredibly happy to be in the same room as, frankly. Or people like Rami Ismail, who's an old friend, and being able to have dinner with him was like the highlight of the whole thing for me, because I just missed that guy so much.
Yes, he's a lovely
guy. He is, and for me, that kind of seeing those specific people that I like to see at those things was wonderful and made me feel very good. In terms of the work being done there was definitely a lot of business being done. There's a lot of money floating around. Like, it's a lot of publishers wanting to get cool things or buy companies or all of these things. Like, it feels like there's almost like a pent-up need to do business in the games industry. No one's gone anywhere and opened a checkbook for a while, so everyone was very excited to be doing that. So it was good to see. I think the industry's in good health. From like a commercial point of view, I think the industry was also very respectful of each other at that event. It felt like a good energy and a good, respect for where we're at in the pandemic. Not going to be rushing to another conference for a little while, I think, but it was definitely fun to go and kind of engage with that safely.
Yeah. I mean, strange times at the moment. As you say, like, I think, especially for smaller studios and indie game developers, to sort of cover that basis, it's a lot of people, and I have this in a different industry for a similar thing. But when you don't work with many other people or any other people, like, these events are even more poignant and even more pressing to, like, as something that really is a good social release. I think that's something that, I as you say, a lot of people were probably looking forward to it, but a lot of people were probably looking forward to seeing people and meeting people and just being able to go out and socialise in a group of people and do that, because they're not getting that in their daily lives at the moment, basically.
I think that's one thing that's definitely, like, I've said this to a few people, like, because we've been work from home since the start of this company, since 2013, we've all been working from home. But one thing I definitely underestimated at the start of this was how much both me personally, but also everyone on my team kind of relied on the social life they had outside of work to kind of, and as that constricted, it became, the workplace became the center of everyone's day in a way that it doesn't exist. It's not in normal circumstances, and we kind of have worked long and hard as a company to try to, like, prevent the company from becoming like this fake family kind of vibe that some companies have. But then once all of that other stuff kind of constricts in everyone's lives, suddenly the work life becomes much more important and becomes something that people are relying on for their social interaction. And I think conferences are, for the short to mid-term, going to become similar in the sense that they're going to become these outlets for people seeing each other. I know there's some conferences starting up kind of early to mid next year that I'll probably attend, and there's a very good chance that, those will be the biggest social gatherings I'll attend, like, for the next over the next year, right? Like, probably, I've been seeing friends in like 2s and 4s and 6s, like, and for 6 months or so now in safe ways. But, like, in terms of, like, am I going to go to a cinema? Am I going to go to a theatre or a big live event for the next 6 months? I'm not sure, but I'll probably go to conferences, So it's a weird... Right now, there's, like, an outsized scale in my life of those things, for sure.
For me, if it's not work-related, then it is almost certainly not happening at the moment, especially with things getting a little bit worse at the moment. And, we could go into how badly our government's acting and stuff like that, but let's not go down that path.
I would never criticise our fearless government. I'm not a political creature. I would never share an opinion publicly about our government and their terrible, terrible decisions.
Yeah, well, I definitely would, but let's not get into that now. We could be here for another half an hour or so. So
you're right,
probably a deeper hole than we want to dig at the moment. You kind of talked about a lot of business going on there. Is there any news about Mike Bithell Games?
Yes, I'd like to announce the 5-year roadmap. Let's do it. 5-year roadmap on this show. Let's do it right now. I've got 5 announcements I'd like to make. No, I don't have anything to say. I will say we're in a very interesting position and we're doing very cool stuff. and I can't talk about anything else for now. I probably won't be able to for quite some time. I'm going to have to be secretive again.
Yes, you know me. That was probably not a serious question, unless it was just happened to be the right time to say something.
But one time, right? Like one time, you're going to do that question, and the person you're talking to is going to be like, "Screw it, I'll tell you the whole thing."
Oh yes, I'm leaving tomorrow anyway. But yeah,
right, yeah.
But I assume for the moment, at least, and for the foreseeable short-term future, at least, you're quite happy being an independent game developer in the position that you're taking, and that you've had enough continued success with your recent releases to be continuing doing what you're doing. And
yeah. We're gonna continue on making cool stuff and selfishly making exactly what we want to make, which is ultimately the goal. I get a little bogged down in the definition of indie, but for me, it's about making my own choices and letting my team make their own choices as well. And I think we are, for the next few years, we're going to be golden. We're going to be making lots of interesting stuff. After that, anyone who'd like to buy my company, my name is Mike Bithell. My phone number is...
But yeah, I mean, look, you've always gone from one interesting project to the other, and that's why it's always interesting to have you on the show.
I intentionally troll the audience. You couldn't guess what my next thing is. I know what my next thing is. You wouldn't guess it. You could do a bunch of them, and you wouldn't get there. And as long as that's the case, I think I'm making fun choices, and I'm happy.
Yeah, and I think that shows, that you're still. I think it shows to your audience that you're still having fun and having an approach, and you've still got like fresh and new ideas, and it shows that you're not getting bogged down in like getting bored with being a game developer. It seems like something you're still having fun with and still enjoying, basically.
Yeah, I'm Tom Hanks from the movie Big. I'm a child who has somehow found themselves in the adult world. In the adult world, yeah. I don't know what happened. Some kind of curse.
Well, let's hope it's a curse that keeps on infecting the rest of the world with the joy that you bring, Mike. So thank you very much.
The best segue out ever I've ever heard. This is brilliant. This is the kind of professionalism my podcasts cannot achieve. Carry on.
But yeah, we did mention that you got the Solitaire Conspiracy coming out later this week. So that's on it's PlayStation 4 and 5. That's one thing we didn't clarify.
Just PS5 for that.
PS5
and Xbox Series S and
X and S. We still haven't.
X and S. Sorry, it's that way around, isn't it? You can't do S and X. It's X and S. Yeah.
Yes, but still, there's no good, smooth way of saying Series the
Xbox Series.
What are they going to do when the next one comes out? I don't know. If it's a Series E, that's like going to be problems, but I don't know where they're going. Yeah. That's probably it.
There's lots of letters. There's lots of that's probably, I would guess that was the meeting at Microsoft. There's lots of letters. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. We can go through alphabet. They do get a bit less cool though after X. Like X is probably the coolest letter. Would you say?
Now I want to I think we're outside the scope of the podcast here, but I do want to do the ranking with you. Which letter is the coolest letter? What's your top 3 letters? Let's do that quickly. What's your top 3?
Top 3 cool are probably the last 3, just in a slightly different order. I would say X.
Yeah.
ZY.
I see. Okay, that's interesting. So it's interesting. So I wonder if it's because they're last in the alphabet, you consider them less cliche. Like they're less often encountered, so they're more interesting.
By the time someone's going through and selecting letters, they've got 23 candidates before they even get to those. So, that could be it.
It's reminding me of the last challenge of Squid Game right now. They go for the last ones on there. Fascinating. Okay. That's interesting.
But and anyway, just remind people as well as we sign out though, where else they can find you on the internet as well, basically.
Just type Mike Bithell into Bithell. Twitter probably, if I'm honest. That's probably my most vocal outpouring of id. And I'll see you on there. And then just play all our games and listen to all our stupid podcasts.
And all the podcasts.
All that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much for joining us, Mike. Always a pleasure to catch up with you, and thanks for making some time to do so. And I look forward to seeing the Solitaire Conspiracy this week. I might try and get some hands on with that myself and talk about it on the show. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll catch up with you again soon when you've made another 2 or 3 games that we have no idea what they are yet, and we'll see in the future and could never predict.
I'll never tell.
Your ears are quite welcome for the podcasting goodness that you just heard. Why not roll on over to BigRedBarel.com for more podcasts, news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarel.com.
That'd be marvellous. I think... And every podcast that gets downloaded allows us to put some money in the kitty for new sound effects at Coleman's soundboard.